Hello, today we're going to be doing lesson 71, which is finding the whole group when a fraction is known. And this is very similar to what we've been doing before with our diagram boxes. The difference is that you are working from a different point in the problem. So it should look familiar, it's just kind of a twist on what we've already been learning. So the first equation and problem I'm going to show you is what we've already been doing to get you ready to go. And then we're going to change it up a little bit. So 3/5 of the fish in the pond were bluegills. If there are 45 fish in the pond, how many fish are in the pond? So I know I need to make a box. Okay, so we've always been doing that. We know there's 3/5 are bluegills, and we know there's 45 bluegills in the pond. So how many fish are in the pond? Okay, actually this is something you have not seen before. You've seen something similar, but it's a little bit different. So when you're seeing a problem like this, the most important thing is you're labeling everything and reading the equation very carefully. Really, this is a question of whether or not you're able to understand what the problem is asking you. If you take your time and understand what's asking you to begin with, it's going to be a lot easier than just running through it real quick. Okay, so it says 3/5. So I know I'm going to divide my daily into fifths. Okay, and it says 3/5 of the pond were bluegills. So I know this part is bluegill, which are a kind of fish. And it says there's 45 bluegills in the pond. Now, normally we would write the other number up here, right? Our total, but we're not going to do that because that's not telling us the number of fish in the pond. It's telling us the number of bluegill. So we're going to put 45 here. Okay, I don't know what the total is. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now. So I need to figure out if I have 45 and it fits into these 3 pieces, how many fish would go into each piece? So what I'm going to do, instead of doing it divided by 5, I'm just going to divide it by the 3 pieces that I know are my bluegill. And that's going to give me 15. So I can put 15, 15, 15. And I can double check that 15 times 3 gives me 45. Okay, so I know that these 15 fish in each of these 3 will add up to my 45 bluegill. So to find my total up here, I need to keep moving and filling in my box. So I'm just going to add 15, 15, 15, right? Okay, so now I have my total number of fish through my 5 boxes. So I can either add 15 5 times, or I can do 15 times 5. And that's going to give me 75. So I can say, oh no, go back. Okay. That there are 75 fish. And I can double check that because 15 times 5 is 75, right? So I'll say 75 fish were my total in the pond. Okay, so what's different is you're trying to find the total in most of these, and they're giving you a part. That's why I'm saying a fraction. You know a fraction, but you don't know the whole total. Okay, example 1. When Juan finished page 51, he was 3/8 of the way through his book. His book had how many pages? Okay, I don't know how many pages are in the book. That's the total, and that's what I'm going to try to find out. So I know I'm going to make a box, and it says 3/8. So I'm going to divide my box into 8 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So 3/8 of it, so I'm going to go ahead and do a fraction, is how far he's gone. So how much read? And it says that he read 51 pages because he ends on page 51. And those 51 pages count for 3/8 of my fraction. So the question is, how can I split these 51 pages into my 3 boxes? I'm not going to divide it by 8. I'm going to divide it by 3. 3 goes into 5 one time. So each one is worth 17. So I can double check my work by saying 17 times 3, and that's going to give me 51. So if I break my 51 into 3 parts, it's 17 each, so I can keep doing my 17 all the way up. And then to find the total, I can add all my 17s, or I can do 17 times 8, because there's 8 pieces. 1 times 8 is 8, plus my 5. I should get 136 pages. So 136 pages is how long his whole book is. And that makes that makes pretty good sense, because 3/8 is a little less than half, right? So this would be a number that I would expect would be a logical answer. Now, if it were smaller than 51, I would know that that is not going to work. But this, it looks like this answer is reasonable. Okay. So the next thing they ask us, for example 2, is to solve this equation. It says the story in problem 1 can be expressed by the following equation. 3/8 p equals 51. Solve the equation. So when I solve the equation, I'm trying to get p by itself. I'm trying to isolate p. So the best way to do that is to get rid of my coefficient before my p. And this should look very similar to lesson, I guess it was investigation 7, where I'm trying to get p on one side by itself. So I need to get rid of my 3/8. So the way I can do that is by multiplying each side by the reciprocal. Remember, I have to do the same thing to both sides so it balances. I can cross off 8 and 8 is 1, 3 and 3 is 1. So now I just have p equals 51 times 8 over 3. I don't know what that is. So let's see. Actually, I can simplify before I do this, because I just said that 51 divided by 3 was 17. So I can make that a 17 and that a 1. And now I have 17 times 8. So that gives me, times 8 is 8, 136. So ultimately, when you guys do like more real algebra in the coming years, you're going to be solving like this. You're not going to have to do the diagram boxes. But that's a visual way for you to do it, and this would be the algebraic way. So I end up with the same answer. This way I just used an equation. The other way was the visual way. But this is just another way to represent it. All right, example 3. As Sakura went from room to room, she found that 3/5 of the lights were on and 30 lights were off. How many lights were on? So, okay, I'm going to do my diagram box, and it's in fifths because it says 3/5. 3/5 were on, so that means this part was off, right? And that 30 lights were off. So I know this is 30. So it says how many lights were on. So the only way I can find this part is to figure out what my total is here. So I'm going to work, I really have like 2 steps I have to do here. Okay, so I end up with 30 fitting into these 2 boxes, right? The 30 is the off. So 30 divided by 2 equals 15. So I can put a 15, 15 here. 15, 15, 15. I can continue. And I know that these are my boxes that are on. So 15 times 3 gives me 45. So I can say 45 lights were on. I actually don't even need to know my total. Like, I think it might be helpful, but it doesn't ask me for it. So if I did need a total, it would be 75 lights. But since it doesn't ask me, that isn't something you necessarily have to do. Okay, so important things from this lesson is to make sure that you are reading the problems and making sure you understand where your numbers go. That's the most important thing in this lesson. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is your practice set. Practice set. All right, our first problem says 3/5 of the students in the class were boys. If there are 15 boys in the class, how many students are there in all? So first thing I'm going to want to do is draw a diagram box. And it says 3/5 were boys. So I know I'm going to divide this into fifths. Okay, there are 15 boys in the class, so we said 3/5 was boys. And that this is 15 total for the boys. How many students are there in all? So I'm trying to find my total. So I'm going to take my 15 and I'm going to give it to these three boxes, right? Because 3/5 were boys, so this only applies for these three boxes. So 15 divided by 3 gives me 5. So 5, 5, 5. And then it's asking me for my total, right? So I can add my 5s to my other boxes, and my total is all the numbers in the boxes below. So 5 times 5. So there's 25 students. Right, that's letter A. Letter B, this one made me think of Flynn and some of her scary stories she's told me over the year. I hear that there's not a lot of work for clowns right now, actually. So remember to feel sorry for them as you read this. So 5/8 of the clowns had happy faces. If 15 clowns did not have happy faces, how many clowns were there in all? That should make you think total. So I'm trying to figure out what my total is. All right, so if I have 5/8, that means this has to be broken up into eighths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, it's pretty even. 5/8 had happy faces, so this is happy. 15 clowns did not have happy. So my question really is, what did their faces look like if they were not happy? I don't know. So I know this is 15. Now, it doesn't give me a number down here. I don't know what this is. But I know that my not happy is 15. So I'm going to take that 15 and I'm going to break it into 3 parts. And then put numbers in each box. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. And then I can just keep doing my 5 all the way down. So to find my total, I need to add up all my 5s, and I have 8 boxes of 5, so 5 times 8. There are 40 clowns running around in some poor town. Problem C. Vincent was chagrined when he looked at the clock for 3/4 of an hour. He had only answered 12 homework questions. At that rate, how many questions would Vincent answer in an hour? Well, that's kind of how the average person works. So 3/4 of an hour is nothing to sneer at. Let's see what we got. 3/4 of an hour, 12 questions, if he worked a full hour. So we're going to take our hour and imagine it's a diagram box and break it into 4 parts. So 3/4 of an hour, he did 12 questions, right? That's a Q. It's trying to find out the whole hour, though, was my total that he could do in an hour. So I'm going to take that 12. I'm going to split it into these 3 sections. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So my total then is 4 times 4. So my total is 16. And I can double check my math. And I am quite happy to see he can answer 16 questions in an hour, which is actually a really good pace to do your math homework. All right, letter D. The problem in question C can be expressed with the equation 3/4 h for homework equals 12. Solve the equation. So I need to do it like I did in investigation 7. And I'm going to use reciprocals to get rid of the coefficient, because this cancels, this cancels, this cancels, this cancels. So my h is by itself. I put the 4/3 on this side because I have to do the same to both sides, so it's balanced. So now I have h equals, and before I go ahead and solve, I'm going to see if I can simplify, which I can, and that gives me 16 right there. H is 16, and